Our guest is Michael Bosco with Safe Haven Pest Control. And Michael is a lifelong entrepreneur and has founded, sold, and purchased and merged a handful of businesses. This journey has provided him with 15 years in the green industry with over 20 years of pest control experience.
Speaking of buying and selling companies, Michael, you've been involved in a handful of M&As.
Bought my family's pest control business, and then along the way, I bought 3 smaller companies, started a branch in Houston, bought a standalone branch in southwest of Fort Worth, and then I merged with an operation in 2019. So
Oh, wow.
sold, purchased, merged, done a little bit of all of it along the way.
I would love to open up your brain and just
Yeah.
pick at that.
Okay,
That sounds-
so we're gonna have to dive into this, Michael. Welcome to the Bug Bucks Podcast, a podcast designed to turn you into a bug money millionaire. This episode is brought to you by Bug Bucks Plus, the #1 training and education platform designed to help you build and scale your pest control company. I'm your host, Eric Bassett, and of course, right next to me as always, Jay Klaus. What's up, dude?
What's up, Eric and my bug bucksers?
How's it been going this afternoon? Now, we're doing back-to-back episodes. We took a little bit of a break between.
Yes. Yeah. We just had lunch,
We did.
and so I was a little disappointed at first, and then I was actually overwhelmed. So we did Uber Eats, and we got a gyro from a gyro place,
Mhm.
and they showed up. We finished our last episode. I went to go open up to put the fries in the toaster oven, and there were legitimately, no joke, 6 French fries in each gyro container. Between
Yes.
me and Eric's lunches, there were a combined total of 12 French fries. That's I looked and I was like, wait, what?
Yep.
12 French? Okay, and so then I thought, well, why would there only be 6 French fries? And then I realized, as I was looking at the picture on Uber Eats, they had the French fries in the gyro. And I thought, I'm not a barbarian. I'm not going to eat French fries in the gyro. So I asked for them on the side, which was a good thing because how much do you think those gyros weighed?
Too much, dude.
Oh my gosh.
Like I usually when you're eating a gyro, you scoop it with one hand and you got it right here, right?
Yeah.
You're just kind of eating it. And like this one in the beginning, I was like, how do I
I needed 2 mouths to eat that thing.
Yes, yeah, dude.
Yeah,
It was a lot.
It was huge.
Yes.
And it was good. It wasn't like the pita pit where they take the pre-sliced gyro meat out of the cooler and
Yeah.
slap it on the grill. This was like straight up sliced off of the, what is that? The rotisserie meat
Yeah.
log or
Yeah.
whatever, like that was a really, really good
Mm.
gyro.
That's good
And I
stuff.
think it weighed probably 3 pounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
So good thing that this is not a live recording, because I would hate to subject our guest to what most definitely is going to be a very odiferous.
Yeah, interesting time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
In fact,
yeah,
we should open the
100%.
door.
Yeah.
So
And
on that note,
on that note. And of course, as always, we do have a fantastic guest for you guys. You guys are gonna love him. But before we dive into that, just want to remind everybody listening, the best way to receive new episodes is by subscribing to our show on your preferred podcast platform, like Apple, YouTube, Audible, or Spotify. If you love the show, please leave us a rating and a review. Make sure to check out our Facebook group, Bug Bucks Plus. That's BUGBUX Plus. We've got over 4,400 other pest control owners in that group waiting to connect with you and share their thoughts. It's also the best way for you to share your feedback on our show and have your questions highlighted and discussed here on the podcast. So make sure you find us on Facebook and join the group. I'm still shocked whenever I find guys who join the group, Facebook group, and they'll message and they'll be like, yeah, I'm a longtime listener to the podcast. And I'm like, where have you been this whole time, my guy?
Yeah.
Like, it just seems weird to me that you'd listen to the podcast before you were actually part of the Facebook group.
I think it goes both ways. So you find the podcast because of the Facebook group, or you find the Facebook group because of the podcast.
We did have somebody that commented the other day, and somebody said, hey, love this topic on the podcast. And somebody commented and was like, what podcast?
Wait, what?
Yeah, they were like, I'm new. They said, I'm new here.
Oh,
They're like, I'm new here. What
Yeah.
podcast?
yeah.
I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, nothing reveals your newness quite
Yeah,
like
right?
asking the question, "What podcast?"
Yeah, and speaking of new to the podcast, the guest that we have on today is his first time, so we're super excited.
But not new to the industry.
No, definitely not. And I'm about to explain some of the industry experience that he has. So, our guest is Michael Bosco with Safe Haven Pest Control, and Michael is a lifelong entrepreneur and has founded, sold, and purchased and merged a handful of businesses. This journey has provided him with 15 years in the green industry with over 20 years of pest control experience.
Woo.
Right? Having built high growth service companies, Michael has learned that developing excellent customer service is best achieved through transparent, open book management, where the team is a number one priority.
Open book management.
Yeah,
Okay.
right?
Got questions about that.
Yeah, he says that great teams accomplish great things, and that requires intentional actions to build a positive team culture. Michael understands the strain of making payroll and wearing every hat in the organization. Lastly, here he says that decisions affect lives. And as an executive coach, Michael mentors leaders to find opportunities to make positive impact on their team and their families. Giving back to the pest control and green industries has always rewarded Michael in new friendships and knowledge. He actually currently serves as the current past president of the Texas Pest Control Association. I said that correctly. Current past president. We're going to ask him about that in
Michael's
the
going to
episode.
explain that to
Michael's
all
gonna,
of us.
yeah, he's going to do some
all of us that
explaining.
are not in the know.
Michael, what an intro, dude. How are you, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Great to be on with you guys. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, dude, it's great to have you. I feel like we've got so many questions just off of the bio that we got from you.
Oh yeah.
But I guess first thing, how did you get into the industry? What brought you in here?
Birth, I think, actually got me into this. Third generation pest control operator. Great uncle started the business in 1955, and at the Ridall Pest Control was our TPCL number, Texas Pest Control License number was number 30. So,
Whoa.
and then I had to when I purchased it from my parents in 2014. I went to a different corporate structure, right? I went from Ridall Incorporated to Safe Haven Pest Control LLC, and I had that reincorporation. So I went from number 30 to I think like 844,000 or something.
Oh no,
so
you gave up your pole position.
Oh,
I did. My pole position. That's right.
Oh no.
But yeah, so third generation, grew up in the business. Literally from the time I was 12, 13 years old, I was running around in a truck with dad and servicing clients. The day I turned 16, I went and took my driver's test and ran a route that afternoon. So I've done it all.
Man,
wow, dude.
that's wild.
Yeah.
Third generation pest control.
Mm-hmm.
So your grandpa. What was
my great uncle actually started.
Oh, okay,
My dad's
okay.
uncle, and then he bought it. And then dad got out of the Navy and bought the business from him. And then then I purchased the business officially in 2014 from them, so they could retire.
Wow.
So what made you decide to do the name change?
Well, Ridall Pest Control, really is very much a 1955 name, right? Everything must die, kill all, destroy all.
Yeah.
It doesn't really resonate with today's clients. We went from everything must die to, we love and nurture all, to Safe Haven. So,
Yep.
yeah.
I guess it is a 180-degree swing. And I hear what you're saying. I can actually, in my mind, I can picture Ridall being, the name of one of those old-timey puffer dusters with the glass jar on the end, and
And the kids following the fumigation truck down the street, right? To being black and red and bold colors to, our colors are now like nice blue and oranges. And, we have to resonate with the buyer, and our buyer is the female market, So Mrs. Smith is the one who's purchasing our services. So she doesn't necessarily care for, that whole feeling of, Ridall. So.
Yeah, dude. I think it's funny to think about the evolution of marketing and pest control companies, Because a long time ago, it was a lot of the X's from the exterminates, like
Right.
the Terminix
Yep.
and all that other stuff. And I mean, and Orkin and Terminix have been able to kind of keep their branding there, right? But it's like we think about companies like Rent-A-Kill, which they
Yeah,
got.
that sounds so nefarious.
Yeah, right. Well, they wanted the name Entakill from the beginning, but they couldn't get it, so they went with Rent-A-Kill. But they don't use that brand here in the States. They operate under other names, right?
Yeah.
But like now, it's all of the like the guards and the safe homes
Yep.
and the
Mhm.
like. And that's just kind of what it is. Yeah, like
Yeah.
like Michael was saying, the greens and
The
the
greens.
blues and whites and
Yep.
nice colors.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry, we're in, we're out, and the bugs go away, and you don't know how it happens. Kind of
Exactly.
thing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. We're using unicorn tears and leprechaun farts, and that's how we get rid of the bugs, and
Yes, dude.
everybody's happy.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh
It's
yeah.
essence of flowers is how we do it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
So Michael, did
Yeah.
you when you kind of took over? Well, I guess you've kind of always been in the business, but you purchased the business in 2014. At the time, did you have a team that you kind of brought along with you? Was it just you? Tell us kind of what that looked like.
Yeah. Well, so once I got out of college, my formal education was actually in soil science, and so I actually started a lawn fertilization company once I got out of school, and did that for 15 years, and then sold that business in 2013. I did a lot of high end estates. Did the George W. Bush Presidential Library. I had the Mrs. Bush and President Bush's home as clients. A lot of very nice estates here in the Dallas Fort Worth metroplex. And then so I sold that business in 2013, and then that gave me the cash to then actually buy my parents out. So the team actually at the time, Ridall Pest Control was a $500,000 business, but it
Mm.
had been around since 1955, and so I always felt like it was $1 million business sitting in a $500,000 shell of a business.
Mhm.
So I had to build a management team around that. It was really just a few technicians at the time because
Wow.
my dad left, and so that left like 2 technicians.
So when he was working in the business, he was still operating as a
Oh
technician.
yeah. Mom answered the phone. Dad ran her out, and we had a couple other technicians. So it was
Wow.
a small bare bones operation.
And how long had the business been in operation from the time your great uncle started until you took over?
Well, the
That was
entire
what?
time from 55 to
Yeah.
2014.
Yeah.
So
Which
yeah,
is a lot of years. I'm not going to try to do the math right off.
Is that
Yeah.
69
it's higher
years?
level math. That's right.
Yeah,
Am
we'll
I
go with
crazy?
that.
Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
69
yep,
years?
yep, yeah, yeah. We'll
Something
go
like
with
that.
that. That seems good. So do you feel like having the business operating for 69 years? If we're going with we're trusting Eric's math, he's pulling up his calculator.
But I don't trust my
You know
ability
what?
to do the
This is
ones and
just
tens.
this is evidence that you don't need to be able to do simple mathematics on the fly in order to have a
It's
pest control podcast.
it's 59 years, but it's close enough.
59. That's what I was. See,
Yeah,
Eric,
yeah, yeah,
that's what I
yeah,
was
yeah.
saying.
Yeah,
59 years.
59 years. 59
Okay,
years.
so 59 years. Do you feel like that mentality, the mindset for 59 years with let's say the older generation, like our parents, our fathers' generation, the mindset wasn't necessarily a build the business, sales, growth mindset. It was more of a get in, do the job, and just kind of put your head down and go to work mindset.
Right.
So
It was, yeah, for sure. It's interesting that you bring that up because I've had that conversation with a number of my peer groups, guys that I have conversations with regularly. Is that today the mentality with a lot of the, I don't know what you want to call them, a little bit more newcomers to the industry. It is about growing and flipping and selling and
oh
potentially
yeah.
then starting over in another market, particularly with the door-to-door community selling and really fast growth, right? Whereas
Mhm.
yes, and you did not hear about mergers and acquisitions occurring except when somebody like retired out, or there was just a few M&As that occurred, and they were just talk of the town when they did occur back, in the 80s or 90s. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it seemed like you get to the 2000s or, 2010 or so, it's just like, oh, that's a whole new like business model of growing a business and selling a business versus just making a living out of net profit.
Yeah.
So, okay, so where do you think the transition happened for you? Is that something that you kind of picked up in college, or how did that come about
Yeah,
for you?
well, to me, it was, I wanted something bigger. I didn't necessarily want to be, I enjoyed the business. I loved the industry, but I did not necessarily want to be running a route. So I needed something that supported um, me being able to lead a team. And so the only way you can do that is have enough team members to where that works out that way, right? So I guess I built the business to support the lifestyle that I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was the necessity of it. The reality is that if you want to be out there running a truck, your profit margins are just off the charts insane, right? Like,
Mhm.
you're not only taking the profits from the company itself, but you're the labor as well. And so there's incredible opportunity to easily be, in the six digits, running operations like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it speaks also to, like you said, the lifestyle that you want.
Mhm.
My dad turns 80 in January, right? And that was the mindset for that generation. The mindset was, well, you you get a job and you stick with that job forever, and that was the lifestyle. Because that type of lifestyle, that kind of occupation could support a lifestyle.
Mhm.
People have made the joke about, remember that TV show Married with Children? You remember
Mm-hmm.
Al Bundy?
Oh yeah.
And you see a picture of his house, and the caption is, "This is the lifestyle that a single working shoe salesman could support in the '80s," right? So that, but the mindset has totally shifted. You're right. Now the mindset is build, grow, uh, develop more. Whereas with our older generation, it was just put your head down and go to work, right?
Well, and I think that's all true, 100% true. But I think one of the factors that pushed this was the fact that the multiples of the revenue dollars started going up, right? So, I think in the 80s and 90s, if you sold your business, okay, might, I may be way off here, but I think the numbers were somewhere probably between 90 cents and $1.10
Mm-hmm.
on the dollar revenue. So you had to have a substantial business to actually be able to sell that business and retire. So you're so much better off just holding on to that business that's probably doing 15 to 25% net anyway.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to sell. But as soon as you start going into a 2 multiple or even a potential 3 multiple on gross revenue, I mean,
Mhm.
that's a game changer.
That's
So
insane.
sure, the money's going to, the business model followed the money, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I think the other thing that probably contributes to that is the awareness of the change, right? So you go back into the 80s and 90s, like you were saying, even before that, the only time that you heard about M&A acquisitions is when somebody retires and they need to do something with their business, right? They're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
It was a
about to retire.
necessity.
I don't want to do this anymore. I need
None of
I
my
need to
kids want to
find
take
someone to
over.
buy it, right?
Yeah.
And so instead of business owners struggling to find buyers, now it's buyers struggling to find business owners that want to sell, right?
Yeah.
And part
Mm-hmm.
of that has to do with the fact that we're connected through social media,
Mm-hmm.
right? Also like magazines and platforms like PCT is publishing acquisitions all day long.
Yep.
So we have access to all that information.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only are the demand for pest control companies going up by people purchasing them that aren't even in the industry, right?
Right.
Private equity and all these other things, but we're just so aware of it. As soon as somebody sells their business, especially if it's for like a 3x or plus multiple, everyone's talking about it. It's like, oh, did you hear so-and-so got for his pest control company, yada, yada, yada. And then it's like, oh, well, tell me all the details. What was his auto pay? What were his accounts? Like, how did he grow? And I mean, it's such an interesting dynamic change. And now that we're in, 2024, we're 6 months away from, being 2025.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like this surge is going to change very much.
No, I don't think so either. And Michael, you are the current past president of the Texas Pest Control Association.
You gotta.
So first of all, make sure I'm saying that correctly. But then also, as the president of the Texas Pest Control Association, like what kind of experiences did you have, with what we're talking about here with pest control companies in Texas? Did you see a lot of that? Was that was that in your scope of practice or what?
Yeah. So the Texas Pest Control Association currently made up of a few more than 400 member companies. I think that
there's only 400 companies
just in the association.
400 in the association.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Paying members, right? Or paying companies that actually represent something like 75% of the licensees, right? Because I think it's estimated that there's about 4,000 active companies in the state of Texas.
Okay.
So we have about 10% of those. But the great majority of the companies that are not, we have just about all the companies that are like 5 to 10 plus technicians.
Okay.
It's just there's a lot of one-man, two-man operations that are not necessarily members of the association. But we saw that all of that consolidation that we were talking about, made an incredible, like we went from the time that I became very active on the board, I think we went from like 500 members down to 400 members. So our membership has gone down like by 20%, but the number of technicians and license holders that represents actually has increased, right? Because there's been so much consolidation within the industry.
Wow.
And you're thinking that's due to mergers and acquisitions and everything goes along with that. Interesting.
Correct.
So are most of these that you're aware of, are they like most of these mergers and acquisitions, are they other pest control companies buying other pest control companies, or is it like the big mega companies buying pest control companies? Like what do you see there in Texas?
Yeah. Texas has been I think a little different than most of the industry because the East Coast, West Coast seem to have there's been a lot more players. Texas has traditionally been your already operating pest control companies. It's not so much the private equity. Now it's here and it's happening, but your Orkins and Terminixes and Rent-A-Kills who were competing against each other for buyers, and now they're not competing against each other. And Arrow and those guys have traditionally been the buyers in Texas, but for whatever reason, Texas hasn't had as much M&A, I think, as most of your East Coast and West Coast has seen. But I this is very anecdotal, but in my conversations and what I'm personally seeing is that private equity seems to have zoned in on Texas in the last 12 months and really wants to make some purchases in Texas. So I think it's heating up fast.
What's up, my fellow Bug Bucksers? I'm going to take a moment to highlight one of our premier sponsors of the Bug Bucks podcast. Cockroaches have nowhere to hide from Advion Trio Cockroach Gel Bait. This Syngenta solution is formulated to control cockroaches at every stage of the life cycle. With 3 active ingredients, including an insect growth regulator and a chitin synthesis inhibitor, it offers complete cockroach control with built-in resistance management. PMPs can complement their Advion Trio applications with Advion Microflow insect bait, which can reach small voids on cleanout and maintenance accounts as a dry flowable bait. Both products can also be used as part of the Secure Choice Cockroach Assurance Program for proven results.
If you think about the geographical spot that Texas represents, if especially places like private equity have been focusing on the coasts, right? East Coast, West Coast. I mean, part of the strategic move of purchasing a pest control company, especially for private equity, is how well you can share resources between offices,
Totally.
like management and other things. So it's like Texas is a huge central southern part of the country.
Yep.
If you can get a stronghold in Texas, well, you can share a lot of resources back and forth from either side of the United States.
Yep.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. You know, Jan and I have always said, you know, if we were to own a pest control company in any other state other than Washington, it would be Texas. And my only experience is I sold pest control door to door in the Dallas-Fort Worth area 13, 14 years ago. It's been a long time. But man, we just loved Texas. I loved going door to door in Texas. Texans are just a different breed altogether. And I was there during this massive, horrible heat wave. I think I mentioned in the last episode. It's 15 days over 115 degrees, and it never dipped below triple digits at night. So it was friggin' hot. Like on the news, 3 more people died today. 3 more people died in the last hour. You know, and anyway, I'm going door to door. It's 115 degrees outside, and every other door, oh hey hon, do you need a bottle of water? You look sweaty. Come on in, can I make you a sandwich? And I'm like, I have literally landed in like the pest control heaven, you know? So, I mean, that's how I feel. I love Texas. Do you feel, Michael, like there's a lot of companies that are flocking to Texas because it's a great market, or is it just for the barbecue? Like why are companies going there?
Definitely the barbecue is a driving force, right? But you gotta, like, the Dallas-Fort Worth market is almost 8 million people. You know, that's more of a population than 27 other states, right? So, and that doesn't even talk about Houston and Austin and San Antonio.
Yep.
So, you know, the figures that we have an economist that comes in, Dr. Ray Perryman, that comes in and talks to our Texas Pest Expo event that we do for the association every year, and that was last month in June. He's basically, the numbers he was throwing around was that Texas has had 1.2 million new jobs in the last few years, and that means that 1 out of every 5 jobs in the country has been in Texas.
Wow.
So the amount of growth and prosperity that's occurring in Texas just can't be done. You know, it's there. So the opportunity, you know, I think that creates an environment where, as pest control companies, we're really not competing with each other. We're really just competing. Like, you're passing 1 million clients on your way to the next account.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of opportunity. The state is very pro-business. There's a lot of available money and investment opportunity, and there's real estate here that's reasonable, and the cost of living is reasonable. And, you know, we have low energy cost here, oil and gas, and the wind energy and solar energy. Like, it all comes together to make for an incredible opportunity for a lot of businesses, which means, as the service industry, it's going to follow suit.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Well, and it seems like, I mean, you know, from what we're talking about, Texas seems amazing.
Yeah, I'm sold.
Especially for pest control companies.
I'm on the way.
Michael, listening to the members for the association, what do you feel like they struggle with the most from a pest control standpoint in Texas?
The individual operators, you're saying, or the association?
Yeah, just the individual operators themselves. And when you guys sit down and you have meetings and you kind of talk about, hey, these are the pain points for us as pest control operators, what are things that they struggle with operating in Texas? What do you feel like is unique to Texas?
It comes down to labor. I think people is always the biggest struggle, and frankly, that's, you know, as much of a problem in Texas as it is anywhere. Hiring, we're competing with all the other industries. We're competing with each other finding the competition to me isn't so much about the client, it's about the team members themselves. So I think to me it comes down to hiring. It's, if you can get that right, if you can find the people, then the business will just organically grow because you have the capacity to serve them. Good people are going to attract more clients. Clients are going to refer you. You're just going to have a natural organic growth without having to spend a bunch of money on marketing. People love to share and refer good companies that they enjoy doing business with. So I think I don't see it changing for a long time because labor is our biggest issue, period, because the demographic of the state and the country is that there's just fewer and fewer working individuals, right? The baby boomers are retiring out. The generations behind are smaller and smaller. So it's going to be automation within the manufacturing industry. It's automation at fast food restaurants, and the service industry is going to have to figure out how to get more done with fewer people.
Wow.
How has the door-to-door element of pest control affected PCOs in Texas?
I have an opinion that nobody necessarily disagrees with. My theory is that the door-to-door community has actually increased the number of households that are receiving pest control. So, I think a lot of people, pest control operators, will get worked up and saying, door-to-door companies are knocking on their client doors, right? I think that they're bringing more and more households into the serviced community of actually, because really I forget what that number or that percent of households that actually use a pest control company, but I can't help but think because I think the pie is getting larger, in my opinion.
Yeah,
not every sale that a door-to-door guy makes is a switch over from another company, right? I mean, a lot of those are new customers that have never had pest control before. So you're right, the pie is getting bigger.
Well, and if you think about it too, not a lot of people think of door-to-door sales as a marketing arm of their company, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because it is. Every time you knock on a door, leave a flyer, you're producing awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go into a neighborhood and I talk to 50 people in that neighborhood, and 10 people buy, right? Well, I've got 10 new customers, but I have 40 other people that I talk to that are now thinking about pest control, whether they were thinking about it that morning or not, right? So I appreciate where you're coming from, Michael. It does bring awareness, and I think it does drive more buyers to purchase pest control, whether they purchase from those door-to-door salesmen or not, right? We've had people in our market who will call us and they'll say, "Hey, yeah, someone just stopped by my door, so I wanted to call around and price check." And I'm like, "Oh, this is going to be great. Like this poor guy knocked on this person's door and they're going to buy it from me. Okay, awesome, right?" So it might be kind of a struggle. We get a lot of the same conversations from non-door-to-door growth pest control companies, just loathing door-to-door for good reasons. I mean, there are some shady practices, but they just don't quite understand that.
Yeah, and also I think that on average, I think door-to-door companies are actually their price point, their service price point is above average, right? And I think the market kind of drives that because one, there's a tremendous expense in just that salesperson, so that they economically, have to have a pretty good price point, and so I see that it's actually increasing or certainly holding the market price up. Whereas, there's a lot of companies that, will drag a market down, but I don't think I think the door-to-door companies help justify higher price points.
That's interesting because that's like the opposite of the economics principle of abundance, right? So, I mean, or competition. So normally the more competition, the more prices get driven down. But Michael, actually, I I totally see what you're saying there, and I can agree with you from my perspective also that pest control companies being in competition with each other in a door-to-door space, it's the ambition, the economic ambition of those door-to-door sales reps that drives them to push for higher prices.
Mhm.
And as they push for higher prices, it raises the price standard for the entire industry.
Well, I remember, there was a time, when we first started selling. I mean, I'm thinking about the contract values. They were like sub 500s, right? I mean, you're
Oh,
like $400,
$89
$395.
a quarter.
Yeah, like I remember selling 65 a quarters
Oh,
and
man, you
like
must have been desperate.
69 by monthlies. But you have this price range that's in the 500s, and then most recently since 2020, I mean, I've seen contract values for general pest in the 850s to 1,000 range,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of these guys are doing ancillary services. You got the mosquito stuff, built in there. You've got the rodent stuff built in there. But something that Michael touched on is that due to the nature of door to door, right? It's really hard to get qualified door to door salesmen without paying them an arm and a leg, right? You got to pay them a lot of money to get them to go out and sell. Well, if you're a pest control company, you're thinking, okay, the only way that I can make this work in my mind on paper is if I can charge a lot of money. Then after I pay the guy, I still have enough money to operate my company, right? So by its nature, companies that build with door to door have to charge high prices, because if you don't, then it's going to be a single season business for you, right?
Yep.
There's no way you're going to be able to afford to stay in business after you pay out your back ends.
And if your plan is to sell your business at the end of that year, then that's okay.
Then that kind of comes back to full circle what we were talking about before, is some of these guys have the business model from the beginning, right? They know they're going to sell out to wherever it is. And so some of the numbers that they're putting up on the board, you're like, how is this sustainable, man? How are you going to keep this business rolling? Well, surprise, you're not, right? You're building it to sell.
Yeah. And speaking of buying and selling companies, Michael, you've been involved in a handful of M&As, it sounds like.
Yeah. So I started my Soils Alive lawn fertilization company, and then I sold it in 2013, and then I bought my family's pest control business, and then along the way I bought 3 smaller companies, started a branch in Houston, bought a standalone branch in southwest of Fort Worth, and then I merged with an operation in 2019. So sold, purchased, merged, done a little bit of all of it along the way.
Oh, wow. I would love to open up your brain and just pick at that.
Okay, so we're gonna have to dive into this, Michael. So I feel bad because usually I ask everybody in the beginning where I'm like, hey, is there anything you don't want me to talk about or poke around in? So if there's anything that I ask that you're like, sorry, man,
just give us a sign. Go like
this.
Be
like, no, I don't know about that. But I want to say, and this is just kind of a generalized question. These first few acquisitions that you went through, were these ones that you went looking for, or did they find you?
I think so. Part of it was my being active in the association. I was on the board for several years before I ever became on the executive. So just being active in the association led me to a couple of them. And then being in the industry for as long as we had relationships with our vendors that go back decades, right? And they knew my father, and then they knew me, and I'm a known commodity, and they have a lot of respect for who we are and the culture that we have, and they enjoy coming to our operation because we're engaging and fun, and our team is active and lively, and they enjoy talking to us. So there's just when you have that, there tends to be a little bit of a magnetic effect. And, when someone says, hey, I'm looking at selling, and I've, had conversations with others saying, hey, if you know anybody that's interested, we tend to come up on that in that conversation. So just that's really kind of been the scenarios of, people enjoy what we have, and, they want to refer us to other companies. And because, the average small business owner pest control operator that's, between 3 and 5 technicians, what's important to them is that their clients end up with a good company that's going to take care of
Yep.
them, and that their
Mhm.
employees are, right. And so they know that they're getting that with us, and so that's more important to them than necessarily that dollar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So, I mean, I've always wondered if there was like a directly relatable or tangible benefit for PCOs being more involved in state associations, right?
Oh yeah.
Which and now that we are more involved in state associations, I can
Mhm.
see them from kind of the inside out,
Mhm.
right? But just that right there, like there's a lot of value in networking. If you are involved in the state association, people will come to you with these types of things, right? They trust you. And of course, like Michael was saying, building relationships within the industry, which we've
Oh,
talked about
totally.
before. That's not something that was maybe it's better in Texas. Michael, would you say that PCOs
Because
like
there are no cats in
have they
Texas,
always kind of got
and the
along
streets are
with
made
each
of
other
cheese.
in Texas? Because in other areas, man, that was not always the case.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories back in the day about, the settling arguments or whatever, but I think for the most part, I, I think that when there were smaller operators on average, and I think it was a little bit more of a territorial turf war environment that existed. But
Mhm.
also, I've just been very involved with like the Dallas and Dallas Fort Worth, associations, and then moving on to the state association. Dallas, again, just because of its size, I don't think companies necessarily felt like they were competing with each other so much, right?
With so
They're
many
just it
people.
was never Dallas was just growing so fast that there was never absent a lack of opportunity, and so in that environment, I think you get a little bit more cooperation going on. But certainly on the state level, there's a friendliness to it. So the state this the industries that I've always known has been extremely helpful to each other. Even as a young, you know, 16, 17, 18-year old coming to the local association, the older gentlemen in the group are always helpful and always wanted to share. And,
Mm,
so I've always found the industry just very open armed, very open to share.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, just taking one step backward, when you did these mergers or acquisitions, did you handle everything in house? Do you have a team that handles that, or would you have like a
I did it.
mediator? You did it all.
No, I handled it all. It really kind of came down to the relationship, and me handling it and not having a broker involved. None of the situations did we ever have a broker involved on either side. Um, certainly think that they can be useful on larger transactions, but all the transactions I've done have been less than $500,000 transactions.
Yeah. Okay.
From 100,000, 200,000, and like a $400,000 transaction. So you're there. There's only so much room there, right? So
Mhm.
Man. Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
What do you feel like, through these acquisitions, what were some of the pain points, like the theme that you kind of found where you're like, man, if I could just make this better, it would be awesome. I mean, do you feel like it was kind of the transition between brands, or I know that some PCOs, and it seems weird to think about this nowadays, but some PCOs aren't digital. They're still
yeah.
working with paper invoices. What was
Well,
the thing for you through these acquisitions?
in fact, the last acquisition that we did, the largest one that we did, they were still operating on 3x5 note cards. And
What?
and I'll tell you, I frankly, that was a heck of an opportunity, right? Because for one, it was, you had to kind of verify or trust that the business was truly doing what the business was doing.
Mhm.
Um, but again, going back to the relationship, we felt comfortable that that was the case. But if you've ever gone through a software change or converting data or whatever, frankly, in my opinion, you're better off doing data entry with every single client anyway, and know that
Yep.
that data is solid. So
You're gonna end up doing that
uh,
anyway. no matter how
exactly.
you transfer from one CRM to another, you're going to end up doing manual stuff.
When we merged, when we did actually the merger, and we were talking about two operations that were about $1 million, and merged them together, created a $2 million operation. We used the same software, and we still had problems.
Yep.
Jeez,
man.
Well,
So,
and it's one of those things where, if you're looking to find and buy pest control companies, I mean, I feel like we're pretty hungry. We got into the acquisitions side of the business at the beginning of this last year, and we found our own struggles, similar to kind of what you've talked about.
Oh boy, have we!
It just kind of comes with the territory, like the existing owner, obviously, and I would say the same thing for my customers. If someone said, "Hey, tell me about your customers," I'd be like, "Oh, they're great. They're nice. They're not complicated. Whatever." And then you get into the mix of things, and you're like, "God, dude, these people are jerks," or whatever, right? And it's just it's a whole new avenue of clients that you don't know. They don't know you.
Well, you didn't
right?
set the expectations originally.
Exactly.
When they started on the service.
And you think that pest control companies are all kind of similar until you have an acquisition and you figure out just how different every company runs.
Yep.
Right? Michael, we're running out of time, but I would love to get some of your closing thoughts for PCOs out there that are thinking, man, I would love to get into the acquisition game, even on the smaller side of things. What are some recommendations you would make? How would they get started?
I'll tell you, I can't help. I've got to touch on peer groups, and I would honestly tell you for any pest control operator, if they haven't gotten involved with a industry peer group, they need to do that, because that creates a board of advisors that is way beyond your own personal experience, right? Mm-hmm. So the McFarland Stanford, who I work with, that we run pest control peer groups, putting 12 owners together in a room and sharing that knowledge and running through those challenges or those opportunities and using them as a sounding board, you can't beat that. So, trying to jump into acquisitions by yourself is, there's you have to go through a couple of them to really kind of understand or experience what it's like. You can't. It's really hard to kind of walk through somebody through it. But I've just found peer groups to be such an incredible tool for growth and to decrease the learning curve that we all experience. And I wish I would have experienced peer groups much earlier in my career than lately here in the last 4 years of my professional life.
Wow.
So that would be my recommendation. Start there.
That's good counsel.
That's awesome, Michael. Yeah. Thank you so much. And if people out there listening right now have questions for you about acquisitions or state associations or anything else, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you? Are you on social media? Can they follow you? Can they reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. They can find us SafeHavenPest.com. They can find me at michael@SafeHavenPest.com. I'm not too hard to find. I think even if you go to the Texas Pest Control Association, you can find me listed there as a contact for on the state stuff too. So awesome. Michael Bosco, Safe Haven, or even in the peer group world at McFarland Stanford, you can find me there. So.
Great. Well, Michael, Thank you so much for everything. This has been awesome. Lots of really good information, and I'm sure we're going to have you back on the show sometime in the future, pick your brain more, and just see how things are going. So This will be great.
Enjoyed it, guys. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate you, Trey.
Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. And of course, for everybody else listening in, we appreciate you guys taking the time. If you have a coworker or a manager or an owner who could benefit from listening to this episode, the best way to say thank you to us is to share this episode with them. If you haven't joined the Facebook group yet, go find the group and join. It's Bug Bucks Plus. Lots of information and great connections there. And if you have a topic you want discussed on the show, drop it in the group. As always, this episode is brought to you by Bug Bucks Plus, the #1 training and education platform designed to help you build and scale your pest control company. Visit bugbucksplus.com to sign up and start building today.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Thanks again for listening in. And until next time, keep building those pest control companies.
You're listening to the Bug Bucks Podcast, hosted by Eric Bassett and Jake Klaus.